Welcome to the Two Act Podcast, where we talk about anime, TV, and cinema. I am one of your co-hosts, Goth John. Who else am I speaking with?
Hi, I'm Adi.
Awesome. Well, we have quite the peculiar episode this week. We are going to cover Andor, a series created by Tony Gilroy. I will read a slight synopsis, and then I can get your first impressions. All right. So Cassian Andor is a nerve-hurting scoundrel, and if any of those words made any sense, it's because, Star Wars slang. Andor is looking for his long-lost sister, and he is soon to find out how far he will have to go to find her. Spoilers for Andor. It's a great show. Check it out, especially if you ever love Star Wars. What did you think about Andor, Adi?
Andor, I got to be honest with you. When you first recommended me this show, I was a bit hesitant about watching a Star Wars show just because of the fatigue with Disney and everything. But my God, this was a crazy adventure, completely unexpected. I had no idea how well this production was, and the storytelling. Finally, a story worth exploring in the galaxy far, far away. It really, it really exceeded expectations. And at first, I was like, the problem is you're doing a show about a character who you've already seen in a prequel. So it's a prequel about a prequel. So it kind of leaves you thinking, like, how is this going to work? But then you watch the show, and it's so much more than that. I was really impressed.
I'm glad you liked it. Cassian Andor is played by Diego Luna. What did you think about his portrayal? He's not quite the same guy.
Yeah, no, it's been a while since I watched Rogue One, but I thought Diego Luna is great in this. He plays Andor with a sort of understated quality to him. He has the charm of a kind of a outlier, outcast guy, but at the same time, you can see that he's playing the character with a deep sense of trauma and deep sense of mystery.
Mm-hmm.
And you can see that they do really well in fleshing out his character's backstory in the opening 3 episodes. And I just loved how much character development he goes through. There's some arcs in this that I was not expecting, but I thought he really carried the show well.
Mm-hmm.
And you kind of have a much more well-rounded meaning and explanation to his character when you meet him in Rogue One.
Yeah.
Although we're still far away from Rogue One.
Yeah, we got a whole nother season for season 2. Yeah, I liked him a lot. He's very shady. He's very likable. He's a smooth talker. He kind of reminds me of Han Solo in quite a way.
Yeah.
He's I think he speaks Spanish, so I want to say he probably did a Spanish dub. I didn't quite read too much into it, but there's a lot of great actors and actresses in this show, and he's definitely one of them.
For sure. I think the thing that I loved and that completely caught me by surprise was how well cast the entire show was. And just when you feel like, okay, you're getting a bit familiar with the setting, the show kind of moves in a different direction. And then you're introduced to new characters who are really interesting. And if I had to, obviously name some characters who I thought left an impression, obviously Stellan Skarsgård as Luthen is great. He's like the founding guy behind the Rebel Alliance. And you've got Bix Colleen, played by Adria Arjona, who obviously has had a breakout year this year with Hitman and a few other projects we reviewed earlier in the year. I thought she was great, as an emotional soundboard to Andor's character. And then I think Marva, played by Fiona Shaw, was great as his adoptive mother. And another character that left a strong impression on me that completely I had no expectations of was Andy Serkis as Kino Loy. That was incredible.
He has a very Star Wars name.
He does, yeah.
Yeah. So the first half of the show, I like to think of it as like, so the first half is like a heist, and like the second half of the show is breaking out of jail. And you don't finally meet his character till they're in the jail, but it is two different arcs that really come together as a good whole.
Well, actually, when you divide it, it's actually 5 different arcs that I noticed structurally. But you're right in defining it that way. I mean, it is essentially the first half of the show. It does feel like a heist film, and then and I had no idea it was gonna get into a prison break movie. In fact, I found it really funny when he finally escapes and he's about to start a new life, and then just like frivolously gets caught up in an act of crime that isn't really true, and then he gets sent to this weird facility. But that's much later down the line. But I thought it was really well structured, this show. And that was one of my initial doubts heading into it. I was worried about the fact that it was 12 episodes, and if you looked at the stuff that Disney's made with Star Wars in terms of TV, a lot of them have been like really short 6-8 episode miniseries. So I was kind of initially worried about like, how are they gonna like plan it out, and are we gonna see a lot of filler, a lot of like groundwork? But apparently, that proved me completely wrong. I felt that it was actually really well structured, and each arc really sets a different tone.
Yep. There's even more characters. There's Dredra, or however you say her name. That
Dedra Miro.
The ISB, the acronym. The Intelligence Bureau officer who's like questioning other Imperial people in this in their like secret society to try to. No, this is what the rebels are doing, and she's like making conspiracy theories, and then she's like backing it with facts, and she becomes like a real like pain in their ass just because of how tenacious she is. And I think she did a really good job, because it's not very often you get a good like antagonist that also happens to be female.
Yeah, nope. The show is certainly rich in female character depiction, and I think that is a reflection on the state of female characters in the recent Star Wars trilogy, which was quite controversial. Fans
versus female.
Yeah, I think there were quite a polarized opinions everywhere, and to be honest, I think a lot of credit has to go to Tony Gilroy for creating this show. I don't know if like this, but like he's seen like as a sort of a quintessential go-to Hollywood script doctor. So when big films have a problem with their screenplay, they often go to Tony Gilroy. Like he's rewritten, reshoot, and directed a few films. Like I think he rewrote a lot of the Bourne films. He did Michael Clayton with George Clooney, which is actually a really good law drama. And he even reshot and did a few rewrites on Rogue One, which obviously had critically, it was really well received when it came out. So yeah, I think Tony Gilroy, what I like about his creation and is the fact that he wanted to create this show, and he was kind of coached as a consultant by Kathleen Kennedy, who we all know is a pretty controversial figure as well within the within the whole Disney Corporation and her control over Star Wars' IP. But he consulted him and gave him like the first draft. So this is something I read, and apparently, he had a look at it and he wasn't quite pleased with it. Like he gave his opinions on it, and then he ended up writing this big manifesto because she was like, we'd love to hear your take. And he wrote this big manifesto, and he wrote about like, okay, here's the things you should do. Here's the things that don't work. Probably chuck out all the unnecessary fan service. Write stories that actually are interesting in a world that's worth exploring. This is something I'm making up, but like, I'd imagine he had a list of things that he put up in that manifesto, and he sent it over. And it was just at a time where TV and streaming was still in its infancy, and I think they were hesitant to like put in that much amount of money. But then they returned to him once the streaming bubble bursted, and I think it was one of those things where it was perfect timing for him. And yeah, I think what he's done and the world he's created is amazing. I always felt as a fan of science fiction that Star Wars is one of the best in terms of world building. Like there's so much potential. There's so much stories and planets you can explore. And I always felt like the films in the recent years did a disservice. Even the shows have been underwhelming, but I feel like with this one, you can really see that he wanted to make a good story, and he wasn't going to be pressured with fan service or unnecessary meddling or, being forced to conform to certain studio policies, I guess. So I think a lot of credit has to go to him.
No, I agree. Yeah, he kind of reminds me of what the showrunner did in the first season of Mandalorian. It's just like, nope, we're gonna make a show for a different type of audience, and it definitely shows. They a lot of care about like the set design. Like in fact, that first like city, they actually had that built. That's not CGI, and it definitely shows. Yes, Ferrix. And it definitely shows. Like I was checking out some interviews, and they're like, yeah, there's even like stuff in the cupboards. There was like a cup of like blue noodles, and I was like, oh yeah, no, that's awesome. It's a lot of attention to detail, and it really shows in the show.
Yep. In fact, a lot of it was shot in, as you say, it was shot on location with really precisely built sets to build it. In fact, the city of Ferrix, the set was so big. I think Adria Arjona's character, Adria Arjona, I read that she actually got lost in it in the set. That's how big it was. I think that's great because, like, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of the Star Wars TV stuff doesn't necessarily look good. Like Obi-Wan looked horrible, in my opinion. And I think there's a lot of like reliance on using the volume, the technology of stagecraft. I don't know if you're aware of that. Do you know what that is?
Explain, please.
So the volume is kind of like instead of like using green screens and making actors pretend like they don't need to be standing in a empty studio room or whatever.
Okay.
So the volume is like these really big LED panels that lit you up in real time, and they display the background of the environment. So it allows you to shoot like with the camera in a real time-esque feel. So I think the Batman film that came out a few years ago, like in 2022, used that as well for a lot of its shots, especially like the sunset and everything. So it's like The Mandalorian really was, I think, entirely shot on stagecraft technology. So there's pros and cons, but like I feel like nothing beats having real physical sets and physical and locations to be in, and it gives you that lived-in quality. And I guess like with Mandalorian, like it's kind of like episode of the week structure. You know, you do one episode in this world and you move on. I kind of like the idea that in Andor you're kind of living here for a bit and you're seeing the world. Yeah, it gives you that grungy, lived-in feel, which I think,
especially in the jail. Oh my god, suffocated.
Yeah. No, the sets were great. I think the production design is excellent. It really doesn't get much better than that. I think as a fan, you're spoiled.
Star Wars.
It is peaks. Yeah, it is peak. I agree.
Yeah, there's like certain characters like the Deputy Inspector Karn that I hate him so much. He did such a good job then. I hate this guy. He's a weaselly worm. Great acting done by him. The Deputy Inspector is a busybody and won't let a murder investigation go. His superior lets him label it as an accident, and he's not about that. So he has more important things to deal with. And, corporate bullshit as does corporate bullshit does. And he's like the entire reason why Dedra like even goes all about Cassian Andor.
Yeah, I mean, like
shit go.
Yeah, I mean, if you were to give it an inciting incident, I think it is the scene. You know, people often criticize the show and say, "Oh, it's slow" or whatever. But literally, one of the first opening moments is the protagonist killing two characters, and they just happen to be these really shady sentry characters, and that starts off this whole snowball effect of their deaths being investigated by this character you just mentioned, Cyril Karn, played by Kyle Soller, who does a really good job. I hate him. You know, he's just a typical self-absorbed, highly ambitious doofus supervisor. But then I think it's kind of like, I found it funny how like his downfall, where like he gets sent to that city and he has to work this soulless job. Like it really shows that he's really just a cog in a wheel of the Empire's machinations. And like it's funny because like he wants to play by the book, he wants to be by the law, by the T, but his superior is just like, telling him to like let it go. Like, we're just rent-a-cops, dude. Like, this doesn't matter. Those two probably got killed for whatever reasons. Don't go creating trouble. But he's just well into himself. And I gotta say, like, one of the issues I had with this show, and I don't really have a lot of problems with the show, but I felt like maybe there was too much time dedicated to his character.
And I thought a shit about him.
I was waiting. Scenes. Yeah. Oh yeah, the scenes with his
mom was on the screen. I'm just like, fuck this show.
I think that scene, the good thing about it is it feels like torture to the audience, and that's probably what it felt like for Cyril himself.
Yep.
You see a montage of him walking through a brutalist city, and you're thinking, oh, this is awful. And it's not nearly as awful as when he has to deal with his mother, who's just controlling, manipulative character who's kind of, trying to be a bit too involved. But I think like I was waiting for a payoff moment with his character. I was like, okay, look, they're putting a lot of emphasis on him.
Season 2.
Probably, yeah. No, I mean, I think it's a big bet to put on. I mean, if you're gonna do that and keep the viewer waiting for season 2, I'm sure he becomes more prominent and probably joins Dedra and her team and goes on her week or whatever. Right. But I feel like it didn't work in this season. If you're being objective, I felt like some of that time could be dedicated to other things that were happening.
I agree.
But yeah, I thought the performance is great, though. I couldn't fault the actor.
Yeah, he was great. There's some forgettable characters that die pretty early. Like Bix's boyfriend, the dumb idiot. He's a rat.
Hey, I don't blame him. Would you be okay with the idea of Diego Luna being your girlfriend?
No. He is way too sexy.
Hey, I wouldn't. So I kind of get it, but at the same time, it was funny how a lot of those characters on Ferrix they're pretty petty minded. You know, they're kind of like there's another character towards the end who's trying to
Tries to
sell.
turn him in. Yep.
Yeah, and I felt
Sells
like
location.
I think maybe it's just a reflection of the city
Yeah.
or the planet they're in, which
Well,
is deprived.
in the Empire, you're trying to get one up on anybody and everybody because it's not only you against the Empire, it's you against everybody else. Because that's what the Empire creates. It creates a fascist society where it's controlled by the military, and if you don't fall in line, you'll get executed, which is a running theme within the show.
Yeah.
Especially when Ferrix gets cracked down on. It's something I really like about the show. Like, it makes me want to be a rebel. But I've always been pro Empire. They just got cooler costumes. They got cooler costumes.
I do envy the costumes, and yeah, it is cool. It is cool. But I love that. You know, it's like what I said earlier. There's just no reliance on fan service, and I can't remember the last time I watched a Star Wars show or whatever where there were stormtroopers and I wasn't finding them to be goofy.
Well, the thing about it is there's not a single damn lightsaber in this show, and the only thing
there's no force.
No force. There's the only thing that gets even close is the mention of a kyber crystal, which if you're a huge Star Wars dork like I am, you'd know that that's one of the key components of a lightsaber.
Oh, okay. I don't know about that. I'm not I didn't grow up watching Star Wars, unfortunately. I wasn't around. So
original trilogy is what I was raised on.
As was many, and that's why it's still regarded as such a cultural icon. So in pop culture. So I completely
that's why
get
we
it.
get so depressed when a new Star Wars TV show comes out and it's not very good. Like, so let's mention some ones that aren't very good. Ahsoka, the Obi-Wan show, Boba Fett. Oh my God, Boba Fett. Oh, I could rant about that one.
I haven't watched it yet, but I've heard bad things.
Mandalorian's gotten kind of towards the last couple seasons. First season was good. See, the problem with Ahsoka is I really love the actress that plays Ahsoka.
It's that Rosario
Dawson.
Dawson, right?
Yeah, I really like her. I think she's a very beautiful woman. I think she can act, but the script in Ahsoka is not very good, and like even the special effects in Ahsoka make your head turn. And don't get me started with that last Star Wars show that came out that I don't even remember the name of. That's how bad it was. The Acolyte. I don't. Acolyte. You have like lesbian Star Wars witches is like straight out of Kathleen Kennedy's like butthole where that show came from. They canceled the second season. It's not happening. They should have canceled the first one. But that's what happens when you get a Star Wars fanboy just really revved up.
Yeah, it is a great really a great show, and I think it's a bit bizarre, really, that the fact that they've really mismanaged this IP ever since they acquired it. I still think Rogue One is the best Star Wars movie to come out of Disney, and
I can agree.
And this is probably the best Star Wars, media ever. I know that's another hot take because everyone will regard The Empire Strikes Back as the best, and I
still gotta agree with Empire, but that's me.
That's I get that.
Rose tinted nostalgia glasses.
I get that, but that's why it's interesting because I didn't grow up watching
that famous line that we all incorrectly remember. It's not "I'm your father." It's something we always misremember.
It's the Mandela effect. That's what it is.
You totally said, "Luke, I am your father." It totally happened. And then you go watch it, and you're like, "Am I retarded?"
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I think that they need to get their shit together, and what they need to do is give creatives a chance to
Yeah,
do
I
their own
agree.
thing.
It's the
And
same all across Disney. They need to start doing that because their Marvel properties are piles of shit right now, and they're all going to turn into that one movie where we have like 15 different star-studded cast, and nobody cares about the movie because nobody cares about these characters and the writing and
yeah,
all that good stuff.
and
The only
that's
thing
why
we
I
have,
wanna. That's why I wanna highlight the casting in this show, because when you look at it at first, you're like, okay, the main core cast is not really necessarily crazy famous Hollywood stars,
right.
but you realize once you watch it that the characters are so well cast that they may not necessarily have huge roles, like they may only have an episode or two to work with, but they leave an impression and they create the effect the narrative needs to be pushing the beats forward. And I think, I can say, like, when I watched the opening 3 episodes, because I really do view the show in blocks. I don't view it as just one thing. I can say that there's, distinctively arcs in this show. What normally would be 5 seasons has been excellently been condensed into 5 arcs in a 12 episode series
Mhm.
for a season. And you look at the first 3 episodes, instantly I can tell you, Fiona Shaw as Marva, Adria Arjona as Bix, Stellan Skarsgård as Luthen. They make an impression. And then you reach the part where he goes to Aldani, and they're stationed in this planet where they need to conduct this really convoluted heist. And that's where you meet. That's where you meet more characters. You meet
Yep.
Eben Moss
I'm not
Backrack,
even gonna try to remember any of those characters because they all die.
uh, Alex
Vel is
Lawler.
the
No,
only one I
these
remember.
these are actors I'm naming, not the characters. But
Oh,
like,
okay.
these are what I'm trying to say. These actors are big actors. They've broken out since. Eben Boss Backrack is in Backrack is in the next Fantastic Four movie. So there's clearly whoever was behind the casting clearly knew what they were doing, because it's excellently cast. I think I definitely liked Forrest Whitaker better in this as Saw Gerrera than I did in Rogue One. I liked
agree.
I mentioned Andy Serkis for me stole the show. I mean, that was just a character that left a strong impression. And
Yeah, that man can act.
he can act, and it's much better than what he did as Snoke in in motion
That
sensors.
didn't happen. That we don't talk about that. No, I knew he could act. Didn't he do Gollum?
Yeah, he did. He might be
yeah.
returning. He might be returning as Gollum.
Can we just kill these IPs? Can we just light them on fire? Because that's what you guys are doing. You're lighting a big bag of money on fire. Stop it.
Cash
Get
is
some
king.
help. I'm just gonna.
Consumerism makes money.
I'm gonna create a clip, and it's gonna be just Michael Jordan just going, "Stop it!
Get help.
Get help."
Yeah. Nope. I agree with your sentiment, but unfortunately, they're going to be recast. They're going to be reintroduced. God hope that it doesn't get to the point where AI needs to be used and you're resurrecting Grand Morph Tarkin again and stuff like that. That does not need to be done. Be inventive. Don't
Cast
get
new actors.
new characters, new actors, just like this show does. Yeah. I got to mention, I loved how grounded and darker the show was, and I felt like it could have pushed the button a bit more. It could have been really dark, and I've always been saying this for years. I've always wanted a dark, gritty, mature Star Wars action series or a film. I would totally be down to see it. I think there's a big potent fan group
Right.
of people who would love to see some of that. But unfortunately, Disney wants to play it really safe.
Right.
We don't know
R-rated Star
now.
Wars, where people are getting their limbs cut off.
Yeah, yeah. I would love to see that, but I want to commend that Andor, rips off the Band-Aid a bit. It is a lot. It is probably the most darkest the Star Wars franchise has ever been, in terms of deaths, in terms of ideas, in terms of a immoral, gray protagonist. Cassian is, he's a gray character, doesn't view things as right or wrong, but he needs to do what he needs to do to survive, to get by. And I think, when you look at his arc, he's a character who just wants to get out of this mess. He just wants to, he just wants what everyone wants, which is to win and walk away. That's what he says in one of the episodes. And, he does, to a point, win and walk away, but he realizes that, he's living in a world that is, governed by a totalitarian regime.
Yep.
And he is a byproduct of oppression. So, it's that whole push of him realizing that he can have a bigger cause. He can be a rebel. He can be someone who creates a movement against oppression. And I think that's where the prison episodes really make an impression, because it's his first initial signs of him being a kind of leader who is not willing to stand up, even though it may mean it may cost you your life. And I think when you look at that arc, it is really well crafted.
It's got a new name in prison. Andor is he's a really slippery guy. I did
Keith Gurgle.
Keith Gurgle. like I'm
a
Justin
tourist.
Roiland making up some freaking made up Star Wars name. And then his name before it took a rewatch for me to notice this. Clem was one of his guys that rescued him from Canary with Marva. He was the guy that got killed on the shooting from the Empire, and I was like,
kind of like a mentor to him.
It was like a homage, I guess. Like it was like a. I thought that was pretty interesting.
It was interesting. I like the. So normally, I'm not a fan of flashbacks because a lot of them often get misused.
Right.
But I found the flashbacks to his childhood really interesting, and one of the reasons that really caught my eye really was every time, especially in the first 3 episodes, you get to see him as a kid, and you see his tribe, and it's interesting because it's kind of like he's living in an isolated world, cut off from civilization, and there's no subtitles. So whatever they say, at first I had to check my. At first I had to check my stream and be like, "Oh shit, have I got this wrong? Is this malfunctioning?
Am I gonna get a message? Hey John, where are the subtitles for this fucking gibberish?"
Then I realized it was intentional, and I thought that was great. And it's great for 2 reasons. First, it's trusting the audience to figure it out. And that's what most of these big IPs need to do. Trust the audience to figure it out. Don't spoon feed shit all the time. And the second thing that I found was, it really allowed you to interpret it the way you wanted to. You could use your imagination. You could make sense and gauge what's happening. And I think that's great. I think it makes watching the flashback a lot more interesting and less boring.
I have a theory why they use Canary. Because kids can't act. Did you see Baby Leia in that Obi-Wan show? Kids can't act. Let them speak gibberish. Otherwise, you'll get meme clips of kids saying something stupid.
Yeah,
it's hard to find good kid actors, so just keep them speaking gibberish. That's fine. They can speak sim language. That's fine.
They weren't too kiddish. They were
not at all. They were teenagers and young preteens.
But it's show don't tell. It just perfectly sets up what you need to know.
Something the show does really well.
the show plants the seed that his sister may be out there, and obviously that's his motive starting out. But that gets completely shoved in the can because he gets involved in all this other conflicts around him, and maybe that's something they'll re-explore in the second season. We never know.
Perhaps.
But, yeah, perhaps. But
we'll find out she's a part of the rebellion too. The second season will just get stupid.
Oh, there's a possibility of anything happening, really.
Right.
I know. There's some characters coming back, like I think Ben Mendelsohn is returning as Orson Krennic, the evil villain from Rogue One, the general, whatever. Right. Alan Tudyk is coming back as K2S0.
If I'm getting the alien right. Guy.
Yeah. In fact, I saw that droid in the episode where he gets caught after he leaves Ferrix, and I thought, oh shit, is he gonna come back? Is this where they meet the character? But the droid just chokes him.
Yep.
He just ends up.
You told me to hold you here. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah.
I was like, are we going to see the end of Andor right here, and the rest of the shows are going to be about the rebels?
I think that's
whole, that whole chase is insane. Like how he gets just fucked over and sent to 5 years of manual labor because he was just in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah, I found it funny, to be honest.
Because his success
shot that way.
At the Aldhani, where they stole all the gold, the 80 million credits, and then there's a character that tries to steal it from him in the last second, so he kills him in cold blood.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
He's one of two characters that survives that whole three characters that survives that whole thing.
I'll tell you what, I was not expecting them to kill off these characters for the heist at Aldhani. I thought they would...
that poor kid.
Yeah, that's Alex Lawther, who plays Nemec, acted really well. Mm-hmm. You feel for him, you feel for some of these characters, even though they have a limited screen presence.
Building them up with the limited screen time they do get, and it's not just bullshit. And then you do feel a little bit for them. You're like, damn it, I like that guy.
Yeah. No, the Aldhani. I was a bit worried because I feel like the only issue when you have to deal with 5 different arcs in one season, the problem is when you have to shift from one arc to the other, and that can be a bit problematic when you have a very specific set of episodes to work with. I think the show does overall, fine with how it transitions, but maybe there's episode 5 and episode 7 can feel a bit it's dealing with the after effects and the preparations of the Aldhani heist, and that can sort of lull the pacing a bit. But I felt like overall, I thought it wasn't as bad as I expected it could get. I think they did fine with how they wrote around it, and they carried their events forward, and the characters. There were some recurring characters like she's part of the Rebel Alliance, who's working
cousins with Mon Mothma.
Yeah, that's a reveal. Kind of It was. So I guess we should talk a little bit about because it's not just about Cassian Andor.
Yeah,
that's what people will think when they watch the show. But there's actually, but there's actually another important narrative thread, which is the origins and the built up, the foundations of the Rebel Alliance.
Yep.
And I think we should talk a bit more about that, and especially Luthen as kind of the guy spearheading this project.
Yeah, he's playing 2 characters.
Yeah.
He's a mysterious big player in the rebellion. ISB ends up calling him Axis, which sounds pretty badass. I liked him as the shopkeep. That was great. And I even liked him as Luthen. Just being a badass.
He's a a really cool character, mysterious, and then you realize that even he is, as much as he's a rebel, fighting against the Empire. There's still clear signs that show you that he's not willing to, do immoral things or kill people if he needs to. And a big part of it is, finding and killing Andor because of what went down with the Eldani heist once it became successful. And also, I think there's that bit where he meets Saw Gerrera and they talk about the 30 men who were used as a trap, including Anto Krieger, who I don't know
Krieger,
exactly.
Yeah.
That bit I didn't fully get, but I kind of understood
what was going on.
Yeah,
he had to sell out one of his compatriots because it was to make it so ISB thought their information was correct, because he didn't want to lose the asset inside the ISB that's feeding him all this information.
Yeah. That bit.
That scene was great, where he's like, "I'm given everything." He's like, "What have you given to the rebellion?" I loved that.
That was a strong speech, and it's even stronger the fact that it's in episode 10, which is the episode One Way Out. That's the episode of the prison break. I think that's the best. Yeah, that is the best episode in any Star Wars television. But I also want to highlight, like, his character is pretty cool. I like the fight in the warehouse in episode 3, where
with, falling engine blocks.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. And I think one of my favorite moments with his character was when he escapes the tractor beam.
That was
pretty cool.
But it wasn't in a way, it wasn't like stupid a different Star Wars movie where they literally fly,
like Carrie Fisher flying in space,
or the purple hair lady flying the ship in hyperspace to rip apart the Star Destroyer. Which, why isn't everybody doing that? It's like something so stupid that
this is what we want. We want to see realistic, grounded, logical stuff set in this fictional world, which is not necessarily Deus Ex Machina. Which is not. Yeah, and I actually found it interesting that he had to, he had to put up an act. He had to pull off all these other moves, and it works. And I think it's moments like that I enjoy seeing it, because the technology is there. It's a world that's believable, and in terms of the setting of the lore of Star Wars. And I just think we need to see more stuff like that. Like, I love the fact that a lot of the show is, it's espionage. It's a spy thriller. You're seeing a lot of like the behind the scenes planning and the scheming that occurs even from the Empire side. The internal politics. Dedra Miro being a sort of ambitious, meritocratic sort of supervisor officer, but she knows that she's working with all these guys who are just, they don't care about those things. They're not looking at it in terms of the letter of the law. And I think that's where they try hardest to connect you with her character and Cyril. Maybe that'll come to fruition later. But I like those things. I like that there was a lot of it felt like this was the Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy of Star Wars. Where
you could put that on
it wasn't James Bond Star Wars. It wasn't James Bond Star Wars. It was Tinker Tailor Spy Star Wars.
Ocean's 11 Star Wars.
No, it wasn't. It's almost like he had this, and they had to attach Star Wars to it because
there's no way it would have got made. Yeah, probably.
And that there's gonna be an audience that'll view it regardless whether it's shit or good. I think that's kind of the harder thing now, as we we reach a point where it's hard to consume media. There's so much stuff to consume. Sometimes you lose track. Sometimes you couldn't care. If I'm being completely honest to you, I was aware when the show came out in 2022. I was recommended the show, but I didn't bother checking it out because I was probably a bit biased, a bit doubtful. And but that just goes to show until the point where you recommended it, and I was always, I felt like I wanted to check it out and give it a shot at some point. But yeah, that's where you realize, oh wow, like there's hidden gems out there, even in the things that you think are the most mainstream. There's still interesting narratives you can find and uncover, which is great. That's kind of the whole point of what we're doing.
Yeah, I have such a problem with the new Star Wars. So when this came out, I, as a big Star Wars fan that consumes, all the Star Wars stuff as soon as it comes out because I'm a good boy, even I was a little bit hesitant to watching this show. But then I watched a couple of reviews and they're like, it's great, you should watch it. And I was like, shit, now I gotta watch it. And then I watched it and I was like, okay, I get why people like this show. There's a lot of good things in it. There's very few things that you could be upset about.
Even the droids they got right, like the B character. It's not like RDD2 speaking whatever, speaking robotic gibberish, and the characters being like, "Oh, I know what you're
showing up."
Yeah, or I know what you're saying, and the droid is going like beep boop beep boop beep boop boop boop, and you're like, what?
Oh,
but it's great that
a droid.
Yeah, no, but that's where they do such a meaningful job. Like the B characters, he's actually really sensitive, and I love the relationship he had with Andor. I thought it was really
the little droid. Even that had like emotions in it. Like it was well made,
well written.
I'm sure it was an animatronic, but yeah, it had like a. Like it even felt for that droid. You're like,
it was stuttering. It had a
like
personality.
That droid dies, I'm gonna fucking cry.
Yeah, no, hopefully not. But I do want to even highlight the Brasso character. He was also really cool. He has a bit of a part to play with stalling the Empire, the cronies of Cyril and everyone when they land in Ferrix, and you can
just
there's just a shot of him
that won't sell him out no matter what.
Yeah, no matter what. And it's nice to see they all have an impression. But I guess like let's talk about like the moment that made a huge impact to you. For me, I watched up until the Aldani heist, and I still felt it was good, but it didn't get to a point where I was like, wow, this is incredible. It was everything I'd seen was great, really well executed. Felt a bit familiar, but still executed really well. But I was at that point where, if nothing happens now, it's going to probably lose my interest in this narrative. But that's where I think we should talk about the whole prison arc. And, it's funny how he gets caught in that act, because it's not, it's ridiculous. There's no proof that he did anything wrong, but he gets taken in anyways, which just shows that, it doesn't matter if you're a criminal or not. They don't care. They're gonna, oppress, exploit anyone they come across for their gain. And I found it funny how he gets caught up into that. And I was not expecting a prison movie. I mean, a prison show. A jailbreak, but I want to say it was a prison, but it was more a facility for the Empire.
Yeah, it was. So you're on 12-hour shifts. There's days and nights. Hey, it's like real life. One of his coworkers is this old guy that a stiff razor knockout. The manager guy, played by Andy Serkis, is also a prisoner, but he's doing a stellar job being a hard ass. Electric floors is kind of a genius way to keep the prisoners from rioting, because there's a lot more prisoners than there are of guards. Any good prison movie needs that sentiment in it. kind of wild that Andor got away with 80 million credits and ended up in prison.
Yeah.
He just has it like stashed in that box. He goes back to it. And then his success in that heist is directly why he's in prison. Because they got carte blanche to go crazy with the laws. Kind of like during the September 11th attacks where they in the United States, they decided to kind of make it so you could do whatever you wanted on phone lines and like tap into people's phone lines, find out if they're terrorists or whatnot. Kind of like that parallel. Andor gets a 5-year sentence for just being in the wrong place. 6 years, exactly. Yeah. And
I think it's ironic that he's in a Empire facility prison while they're crazy and they're looking after him in Ferrex. They're putting all their resources in trying to find him, but they had him this whole time.
Because he just changed his name. Because they don't have a good enough like fingerprint system to like check DNA or anything. They're just not that smart.
That's you could look at it as a flaw, but yeah.
Well, I don't think it's a flaw at all because of how big the Empire is. They have a photo from like 20 years ago when he was a little kid. Like, no, that I think that tracks. Just the system being too big for him to slip in between the cracks and just end up being in jail.
Yeah, it's a unique facility, and I don't think it's ever explained what they're manufacturing, but. I just thought that it was the whole built up because it's 3 episodes in there, and I thought the progression in the narrative, was incredible. And I want to highlight that the opening 3 episodes and the final 4 episodes, the final 3 episodes, is directed by Toby Haynes. And I do want to shout him out because he is a really promising director. I've seen some of his works, but more importantly, I think I told you that I actually had the chance of like having a masterclass with him while I was at university, and I found him to be a really insightful, knowledgeable person to talk to, and he gave some great tips. And it was just one of those surprise moments where like. I had no idea he was attached to this. And then when I saw his name, it just lit up. And I thought that, wow, this is such a funny coincidence. But I just think that the work he did in setting up the series in terms of the direction and ending the series was really strong. And I think it made sense that it was him because it was cohesive, compared to maybe having a different director every episode.
Right.
So... I like the fact that they assigned. I like the fact that they assigned blocks and divided it and gave a different director define arcs to work with. I thought that worked, and I think in the prison you meet all these other characters. They're all men. You don't really know why they're there, and you can tell instantly that not everyone will be there because they've done. Heinous acts of crimes, or they're actually real criminals.
What the old guy do?
Who knows, right? I mean, just basing on Andor getting caught, like just a weird-looking stormtrooper stops
littering. He got arrested for littering.
Littering, yeah, that's a 6-year offense. Yep. So maybe they need to. Maybe that's how we stop pollution and
just put people in jail. If you put plastic in the ocean, you
6 years.
Go to jail for 6 years. Be legit. Be a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Well, we'll see how the election goes. That's what will happen. We'll find out.
I mean, when you're introduced to Andy Serkis's character, I didn't know he was in this, so I didn't really look into the cast too much. So he was a pleasant surprise because I know he's a good actor, and everything he's been in, you can always expect something good from his portrayals. And I think at first he just comes across as like a character who's maybe part of the Empire, or he's trying to fit into their values in order to not stand out and not be killed, because he feels like he can serve his sentence and get out. But I loved the progression you see of him, slowly realizing that it's a lost cause, that they're all dead men, and you can see him.
Another floor that a guy accidentally got put back in that floor that he was already working before when he got his sentence taken off. And so what the Empire ended up doing is they just executed the whole floor.
Yeah,
and that started a lot of fried the whole floor. Yeah.
It's like 4,000 men or something like that.
Something crazy. I don't know.
It's a crazy number, and it's spine chilling when they find out, because at the end of their working shift they have to be commuting through a bridge, one of many bridges, and they're kind of like trapped like ants in the bridge, and they try their best to communicate with other inmates across. It's just a lot of it just reminded me of like watching a war film,
Yeah.
And you really feel for these characters. You really feel like they're being they're severely oppressed, and it's hard. Yeah, I mean, I felt like some of the old man's death was quite a crushing moment. I think that was Olaf's death was like the moment where I think Andy Serkis's character like meets that doctor who tells him, there's no one's getting out. You're all going to be, you're all going to be killed. And that's where you see Andor, who slowly, he builds a reputation for himself, and he fits in. He gets good at what he does. But you also see that those are the early signs of him trying to find a solution, trying to come up with a plan to get out, even though it's practically impossible when you think about it. Yeah, and until they until that death occurs, and until he starts putting in the idea that you don't have a choice, you're dead, regardless of what you do.
Yep.
Unless it's best to try fighting than give in and not do anything. And I think that moment of realization goes into Kino Loy's character, kind of like a union worker who's fighting against an austere, controlling employer. So I thought that moment in episode 9, was it?
Was 9 into 10, yeah.
9 into 10. I thought that was really pivotal to the series. And episode 10 for me is like, that's a roller coaster of emotions.
I'm out of my seat. I'm cheering for them. They're actually going to get the hell out of this hellhole. That was an intense, awesome scene. I like this show is like a roller coaster. You start off going slow, ascending.
That's good piece of television, not just in Star Wars, but in any television. Yeah, that's good
waves, just going up and down, and then you keep getting up to the peak, and then that episode 10 that's like the climax of the whole story. It's just like
it really is, and I think they
all down. The prisoners
they managed
are going to become the guards.
They managed to flood their workspace and get out, and Andor and Kino Loy make it to the control room, and it's crazy it's funny how the Empire, the voice that they speak through is heavily modulated to make them sound more menacing than they actually are. I found that to be interesting. It was very
it's the same with Vader. It's the same with Snoke.
I like the reference. It was a really cool reference.
And it wasn't stupid. It was great.
It was great, and I like that whole scene where Kino Loy, Andy Serkis, gives that speech. I thought it was such a profound moment. He's embattled. He's struggling to come to terms with what's happening.
Yeah, and I was trying to just talk him into talk. I know you want to do this.
Yeah, because he's you. Yeah, because he is that figure of respect that people look towards. And I thought that whole speech where he says one way out, like one way out, was so passionate and so profound. and you can even hear his voice crack at one moment
Yeah.
where he was like, "If we fight half as hard as
As
much as we've been working, we can make it out." And I thought that was a really well shot, well written, well performed scene. Everything came together. It was really good. I thought that was the peak of like the show. It really felt like, and I think what's more devastating is a moment that really caught me, and I didn't expect that. I mean, my heart kind of sank was when you're seeing the scene where everyone's jumping out and they managed to like come out, and you see Andy Serkis, Kino Loy, he's just like hesitant, and Andor's like asking him like, "What's wrong? Why aren't you jumping?" And he's like, "I can't swim." And he's like, he says it again, and there's a bit of a laugh, and then it turns into disbelief and horror, and it's like you just realize like he's set everyone free, but knowing that he won't be able to go and be free himself. And I thought that was a crushing moment for me. It was really profound.
Maybe he'll just show up in the next season somehow.
Maybe
some contrived.
No, but I want to say that look, it's not about why I talk about this. It's not about setting up a character to come again and keeping it ambitious and making him appear again. It's about the moment, and it's about creating an impression in the narrative. And for those 2-3 episodes he starts off as just a one-note character and then builds into something so much more in just the span of an episode or two. And what that represents for so many other characters, I think that's what hit me as well. It was just a really profound end, and I think that complemented it really well with Luton's speech of what it takes, and that was just a strong episode. I mean, it really is the peak for me. And you see Andor falling in because he gets bumped into, and that's they all have to escape by swimming in the middle of the ocean, and you see I thought the overhead shot of the facility kind of looked like the Empire signal, and Insignia, and everyone, all the guards, I mean the inmates swimming out of it. I thought that was really well shot, super symbolic, and I want to highlight that visually it was great. I mean, I knew they would use visual effects and special effects and sets and all that. That's kind of, you expect that with this world, but I thought that it was visually grand without being without trying to be too overly cinematic. So the intentions were very grounded.
The only other time that I get that hyped up is episode 12 when Minerva's speech.
Marva.
I can't.
Speech.
Get these names straight. Andor's mom, his adopted mom. Just dies, and he had a plan after she died. He wanted to start a riot. So this in episode 12, the Rick's Road. It's a scene where Andor's mom talks about how the crowd. She tells the crowd basically that they have to fight back, and it starts a riot, which I think is kind of funny because she was always a rebel.
The buildup of it was great. The drums, the trumpet band, kind of reminded me of a historical bugle band, and it was. The whole build-up was really masterfully shot and set up, and you've got obviously Dedra, and she's been torturing Bix.
Poor Bix. Her mind is fucked.
Yeah,
she got her brain scrambled because the Empire likes to torture people. It's their ploy to bring Andor out of hiding.
She's held hostage as a witness, and and it's great that he comes back to save her, as opposed to, normally you'd fall.
Get the fuck
out. The hero would. No, not just get the fuck out, but also you'd maybe fall for the trap of going for the funeral which I think maybe is indirectly is a motive for him, but more than anything, he's there to like he kind of uses it as a decoy to save Bix, which I thought was great. I think I'd love to see more of their relationship and that character, because quite clearly they both have a strong connection, and it's great to see the whole setup of episode 12 for the main climax, which is Marva's speech. I thought was really well built, and the speech itself is amazing. I mean, the droid projects the speech, projects the hologram of Marva's final message, and it's this rallying cry to, not be complacent, not accept the exploitation and oppression of the world that's been created by the Empire, and it's sort of a passion speech to get people to fight back, and that's what exactly happens. It leads into a riot, a full-blown fight, and there's a few stormtroopers, but I like the fact that they didn't milk that. The stormtroopers served very purposefully, and the presence actually was scary at first, because at first when you see them, it's Andor having a flashback moment of how his mentor Clem gets killed by them.
Yep.
So I thought that had a strong effect as well. So normally, stormtroopers are memed for their accuracy, but
hit the side of a barn.
Yeah. It was still funny how he tried to climb up the watchtower or the bell tower. The guy with the
they just fucking rails into him.
Yeah, that bit was funny. There's some good comic relief in the show. I'll give it that as well.
For a show that's so dark, yeah.
Yeah, but that's always been typical Star Wars. It's always had good, comic relief and moments of humor. So, what was your impressions and thoughts of episode 12?
I liked it a lot. Being that I love Star Wars, just that rebellion shit, just so good. No, I was really into it. I liked Minerva's. I liked Andor's mom's speech. I really enjoyed it. Just the sound design, just the set design. Just chef's kiss. I'm all about this. Let's get more great Star Wars TV shows out there and stop with the bad ones.
Did you have an issue with the Mon Mothma arc, like her subplot? Because I felt like that kind of got lost in translation.
I can agree with that. Mon Mothma, any of the Senate scenes, I'm just out. I'm out. When she's with her husband, I think that's when the scene, her character is the best, because her husband is he's just such a shitbird.
That and the banker friend, the childhood friend.
Yeah, I like that.
So she's kind of like I think the point in what they were trying to set up is she's essentially the benefactor of the Rebel Alliance, and the whole conflict she faces is that the Empire kind of hate her as a senator and are they're spying on her.
Yep.
She's super liberal, but at the same time, she's trying to find a way to fund the Rebel Alliance through a fake charitable organization account, which gets that bit. I felt like her character kind of gets lost in the entire.
Honestly, if Mon Mothma was an already established character, this character wouldn't probably even exist. Mon Mothma.
You see, I completely
from the original trilogy.
Yeah, I completely forgot about that.
She's also.
I kind of viewed it as a new character. Until I realized it wasn't. Yeah, I know. Yeah, until I realized it wasn't a new character, and then I was like, oh shit.
Yeah, she was one of the original rebel leaders in the original trilogy.
Right.
And she had a goofy bowl cut. You never forget that shit.
Yeah.
No, the actress did a good job. It's just I don't really care about that stuff. When they start doing the Senate stuff, I'm just like, I'm getting flashbacks from the prequels. everybody knows those anything
Yeah,
to do with
because
politics
I
and churches is
actually
not good.
because I actually preferred watching the Empire stuff over the Senate stuff. Like that bit,
Oh
even
no, I
though
agree.
most of it was just like meetings, and I think
Yeah,
a
no, but
normal
I like that.
fan would
I like
a fan looking for fan service would probably complain and feel bored or whatever. But for me,
right.
it was really interesting because it gives you an insight into how the Empire works, and the Empire actually has, it's actually an organization with many facets and leaders and teams, and it's not just Darth Vader barking orders and getting things done. So,
and
I
Palpatine telling them what to do.
exactly I appreciated the detail that goes behind everything and how that plays with the narratives of what Luthen needs to do, to set up that decoy and sacrifice a certain group. But yeah, I found all of those behind the scenes stuff great, but I didn't like. I felt like there's too much emphasis on Cyril, which didn't pay off,
Right.
and the Senate stuff was, it felt like they had to fit it in, but it didn't. Again, it could have maybe been best served with lesser screen time.
Yeah, I agree.
But those were my only main gripes. I think the rest is maybe a few pacing issues here and there.
Right. Well,
But
if you time it out, like the shows, it's like 3 or 4 movies. Like it's a lot.
yeah, it's 12
I was
hours
worried
of-
about originally when I recommended. I was like, is he gonna have enough time to watch this? Am I gonna have enough time to watch this? I know it's great and it's probably the best Star Wars show ever made, but still, other than the holiday special, but that's just a guilty pleasure.
Yep. No, it was good. I hope the second season has 12 episodes. I think that is a sweet spot. 10 to
Okay.
12 really gives you an opportunity to flesh out
Yeah, I agree.
the narrative threads and not make it rushed or too condensed.
Doesn't feel
But-
like the Last Jedi it's hard to remember these names, but the last Star Wars movie, the last trilogy, where it's like breakneck space. They're on a new planet and they keep running, and then on another planet and then they keep running.
Yeah, and that's look. It's fun. It's nice that you can do that because the world building is so rich. There's so
Right.
many planets you can have a story set in. But again, like I said earlier, I like the fact that you get familiar with certain locations and they
Mhm.
feel lived in. They feel
Always
grungy.
on
They
Tatooine.
they're not like Star Trek, which everything's pristine and clean and looks super futuristic. But
Right.
it's nice. I mean, I think that's kind of faithful to what Star Wars is about. And I know, maybe there's a certain group of fans who don't like Andor because it doesn't feel very Star Wars. And I just think that it doesn't necessarily need to be, and it still can function within the world of Star Wars. And there's enough references. Like if you showed this to anyone who's never seen the show before or never heard of who's heard of Star Wars but has never seen the show,
Right.
I can guarantee you within a few minutes they can tell, is this set in Star Wars or in the world of Star Wars? So it's not it's not as blown out of proportion as certain critics have pointed about. Oh, it doesn't feel like it's Star Wars. My point is it doesn't need to, but it still can fit in that world. And I think going forward, I'd love to see more attempts like this. It doesn't need to feel pressured into, dealing with the expectations of being, set under the city the Force is in or whatever, or have any ties to, and the
Skywalker
Empire.
family.
The Skywalker family. Just let them, let them be in the past. Just move on.
Did you know that Rey is a Skywalker?
Yeah, I know.
Not because she's blood related, but because she decided that's her name.
Apparently, the latest news was her film. So there's supposed to be a film on Rey that's been delayed.
Let it die. Oh, sorry. I was going another Star Wars movie.
No, I think that another point I wanted to make was the Empire. You know, they feel they're like a presence, but they're not overdoing it.
Right.
As opposed to the Star Wars films. You know, they're very much a threat, and their existence is everywhere, but it's kind of done in that way that the Alien films have done, you know, with Weyland Yutani, you know, that there's a evil corporation out there. Their presence there's always a vested interest in whatever events that are happening, but they don't necessarily need to be there in every single scene. Like, you know, I think that's effective as well. So you can have stories that refer to the lore, but not explicitly need to be forced into having them on screen. That works as well.
Yeah, but I agree. You don't need to necessarily make them look like space Nazis to, you know, have an empire.
I'm pretty sure even if the stormtroopers bit, I feel like I don't know why, but I have a feeling like they probably told them like, "Oh, you're doing a Star Wars story, dude. Like, you need to have stormtroopers," because there wasn't necessarily any need for them to be here. You know, they could have easily not have any stormtroopers or anything like that. But it's good that even though they had them, they were used to good effect, and that's the point. You know, you need to find that sweet spot, which is really hard when every superhero and science fiction movie is just nostalgia baiting and fan service and callbacks and special cameos. Get rid of that shit. You know, focus on good storytelling, new characters, build them, you know, flesh out, you know, bring interesting characters, flesh them out, connect them. I think the only issue I have with the show is I kind of know that Cassian's gonna die, and he's dead.
Yep. There's this whole
and that's a bummer.
One. Yeah,
and that's a bummer. That is a bummer. The fact that we know, like, okay, you know, even though it's great, it's been a good ride, but we unfortunately that kind of tarnishes it leaves a sort of bad aftertaste because you're like,
I disagree. You know. I think that because we know we have a finite ending, we know that it won't be dredged and just taken advantage of.
But you know, Andor's never gonna die, right? You know, like no matter what threat he's put
invulnerable. Yeah, he'll go through some suffering.
He's got plot armor.
He does have plot armor.
Yeah, he has plot armor. He's gonna survive, even though you can get caught up in the moment and you're like, oh shit, like will he shoot him? Like the final scene, like, you know, will he shoot him? But like, no, he's not. He's gonna be alive unless they do some sort of a clone or some convoluted
some bullshit. Yeah, I doubt they're gonna do that if Tony Gilroy's still doing it.
No, hopefully not. But I did read that Diego Luna said that the second season of Andor will make Rogue One feel like a really different film. I think, you know, that's fascinating. Let's see what happens. I think it's interesting that we're doing this on Andor like nearly 2 years after it came out,
right?
And second season's not so far away. So it's nice that we have that both bits of information, you know, about what we can expect, and obviously our reflection on the show. But I wanted to ask you, who was your favorite character apart from Andor?
Apart from Andor, Andy Serkis.
Yeah, I agree.
He's probably the best. Because he's a hard ass, and he gets convinced that he's like, you know what? Fuck this job. And he puts down his tools and they break the fuck out.
Yeah. Dude, fight for the right cause, even if it means
fight for the right to party.
You won't survive. Like, I think there's a speech that Luthen gives where he says, you know I need to give up my life for a sunset I'll never see. And I think that's kind of and that's from the same episode. No Way Out, One Way Out. So I think it leaves quite an impression, and you never felt that way about side characters in a Star Wars film.
True.
Everything's always about prophecy, legacy, Skywalker, all
Jedi,
that stuff.
Sith.
Yeah.
Rule of two.
Yeah. So
Sith code. Sorry, I'm just saying all the buzzwords.
Any other gripes you had with the show or characters you didn't like?
Nope.
Any moments?
I don't think there's a single character in the show that felt like a waste. Other than, like some of the scenes in the Senate, just whatever. I don't care.
Coruscant,
Coruscant always feels that way though in any Star Wars media that has Coruscant in it. It's so Coruscant's like a super metropolis, like it's a political whole planet that's one big city. Yeah, it's the political capital of the entire universe inside Star Wars. And it has been for every era. Old Republic, High Republic, the current whatever bullshit Republic they call the Daisy Ridley movies. Same shit. Coruscant's always the center.
Yeah, I get that. But let's see what season 2, where it'll take place, how far it'll be a time jump. It ends.
I hope it's good.
I think it ends strong. It ends with Andor. I didn't expect that. I thought he'd probably just escape with his friends and get away, but he makes the decision. I think that's him acknowledging that getting away is not going to be enough. He's already done that. He's already got a bit of money and he left, but he still got trapped. I think that's that moment where he realizes, his purpose is to be a rebel and, fight against the oppression of the Empire. And I think that's why he decides to join forces with Luthen. And
what his mom wanted.
Yeah, and we'll see how that ties in with Rogue One. I'd love to rewatch Rogue One after the second season, maybe, and see how much of a difference it makes, because it's not too dissimilar to the character we meet, but now we have all this rich context behind everything. So, cool. Should we get to ratings?
I am all ready. Would you like to go first?
Sure, yeah, I'll go first. I think a lot of it is what we've already covered. I'm just going to keep it brief. I think it's finally a gritty, grounded story in the Star Wars universe that is executed brilliantly without the pressures of it having to conform to the legacy of its IP. I think it's really great storytelling. There's a few issues with certain characters, but that's very minor. Overall, I thought the cast is amazing. Characters are well cast throughout and make a strong impression in the limited screen presence that never draw you out. I think Andor is brilliantly played by Diego Luna. There's some standout performances from Stellan Skarsgård and Andy Serkis. I think they were both scene stealers in the episodes they had. I think episode 10, One Way Out, is a masterpiece and is up there as one of the best episodes ever in Star Wars, and is one of the best you can expect from television. And I think it's exciting, the world it creates. There's high stakes, and it's grounded, and I'm excited to see what season 2 is, where it's going to lead to. I think it starts and ends strong, and I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
Well said. All right. So you're a Star Wars fanboy.
Not quite. Andor, we'll see.
No. I'm not claiming you are. I breathe Star Wars. I can recite the Sith code from memory right now if you tested me to, but I'm not going to for the sake of how long this podcast has been going on. All right. So Andor takes a little bit to get started. And, once you see episode 6 of The Eye, I'm along for the ride. It's a heist movie. Like I said earlier, it's a heist movie that turns into a prison break movie. The show gets better as you're watching it. Like it's like that roller coaster that goes up and down. And, once you get to that episode 10, this is what the show is. This is what I'm about. Star Wars has sucked for a long time. And that's just because, prequels into sequels into a lot of side projects and an occasional good movie, like Rogue One, that, everybody's going to die, but it was actually still going to be pretty good. Things that are in this show, like great character development, great set design, standout performances, Andy Serkis. It's things like this that I want in Star Wars, and I don't want the committee to make the movie because obviously the committee doesn't know what we want as Star Wars fans. You're not going to please everyone. That's fine. I want good Star Wars properties. The last 4 shows sucked. It kind of sucks that the second season will be the end of this show, but that just makes me want to just watch it. Like I said, Star Wars hasn't been good in a long time. And this show is a 9 out of 10. I originally gave it an 8. This rewatch has just set me in my ways of thinking. It's not perfect, but 9 out of 10 from a Star Wars fan is pretty good. I'm still blown away that this isn't a steaming pile of Star Wars shit like every other property. Now I feel like I'm Mirandering. Do you have any last things to say about Andor, Adi?
No, that's really well said. I just want to say I refuse to the notion that when people say that it starts slow. Don't look at it as just one episode. Look at it as 3 episodes, and there's still a lot happening. So, apart from that, you were spot on, and I completely agree. It exceeds expectations. Let's hope we can, continue to get some decent Star Wars material.
All right, Adi, did you have a recommendation for next time?
Yes, very exciting recommendation. So for our next episode, I'd like to chat about the second season of Arcane, Netflix original show. Arcane, I don't know if you've heard of it. What is Arcane? Arcane tells the story, the origin story of 2 iconic League of Legends champions who just so happen to be sisters. Played by Jinx, played by Ella Purnell, also known as Powder, and Y, played by Haley Steinfeld, who find themselves on rival sides of a brewing war between the utopian city Piltover and its oppressed underbelly, Zon. So, Arcane already has a first season out, which you can watch, but there's a second season coming out on November 9th. So I am really excited to cover this. I think the first season is incredible. If you haven't watched it, I highly recommend you do. And also the second season. So we will see you for that episode.
Alrighty. So just to be clear, we are covering season 2 of Arcane.
That is correct. So season 2 concludes the entire story.
Ooh. Yeah, and as a big League of Legends player, lol. I'm very excited for season 2. Season 1 I've watched a couple times. I'm excited to watch that and have a good discussion about it.
Awesome. We will see you for that episode.
See you, Space Cowboy.
See ya.